Well said. Abu Tong suddenly started clapping. However, we might not have to go through so much trouble for this matter. Wang. With a flash of light, a cold wind suddenly blasted into the surroundings, and Abu Tong vanished from the spot with unbelievable speed. Boom! Almost instantly, Abu Tong appeared right before Wang Chong, and his hand reached forward to grab him. At the same moment, a loud exclamation sounded behind Abu Tong. The group of Tong Luo youths swiftly backed away, as though alarmed by something. Abu Tong's face warped in shock. Turning around, he saw Wang Chong standing nonchalantly on the spot he was previously at, seemingly expecting him to make this move. With a frigid expression, Abu Tong said, "Wang Chong, looks like I have underestimated you. I admit that you do have the qualifications to cross hands with me. Haorja, clear the area." Abu Tong raised his arm, and the group of Tong Luo youths immediately backed away respectfully. "Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weisi, you all should back off as well." Wang Chong waved his hands. Zhuang Zhengping, Qi Weisi, and the others were indignant, but they still followed Wang Chong's instructions and backed away with Chen Burang. "Gongzi, be careful." Abu Tong was no weakling. The previous move he made was extremely swift. If his target had been any of them other than Wang Chong, that person would have already fallen. With the people from both sides backing off, a huge empty space was soon opened up on the main peak. In this empty space, Wang Chong and Abu Tong were staring at one another, and the atmosphere grew tense. "We are in trouble." Realizing the nature of the event, Zhuang Zhengping frowned. Even among the Tong Luo tribe, Abu Tong possesses astonishing talent. Furthermore, due to the Tong Luo tribe's vast experience in battle, he is likely to be stronger than even those of equivalent cultivation realm as him, and Gongzi is a single realm weaker than him. Wang Chong had yet to reach the true martial realm. Everyone here was aware of this fact. Even though it was only a single realm of difference, the gap between Origin Energy Realm and True Martial Realm was like heaven and earth. Putting everything aside, just the augmentation from the halo meant that Abu Tong's stellar energy was far more formidable than Wang Chong's. "I understand this as well, but we have no other choice at this point." Abu Tong planned out this entire matter to lure Gongzi over. Regardless of whether Gongzi is willing or not, this fight is inevitable. Furthermore, if we were to step forward and assist him, the other who will surely intervene, and that would only diminish our chances at victory. A worried frown also sat on Qi Weisi's forehead. Under the current circumstances, they had no other choice. Thus, even though everyone knew that Wang Chong shouldn't accept the duel, there was nothing they could do. On the other hand, the atmosphere wrapped around the Tong Luo youths was the complete opposite. A glint reflecting savagery and mischief lit their eyes. "Young master, there's no need to be polite with him. Show him that we are not to be trifled with. Teach him a lasting lesson, so that he will never dare to disrespect the great general and you in the future." The group sneered. Even though Wang Chong's ability to dodge that strike from Abu Tong was shocking, no one still thought that he would be a match for their young master. After all, their young master's capability extended far beyond that single fist. That fist was only an appetizer consisting of less than a tenth of their young master's full might. Humph! Hearing the voices of his peers, Abu Tong sneered coldly, and a frigid gaze surfaced in his eyes. "Wang Chong, my fists and kicks are blind. I might not be able to hold back in the battle." "Ha! That's exactly what I wanted to say." Wang Chong scoffed in response as he stretched his hands and legs. How could he possibly be unaware of Abu Tong's thoughts? However, this happened to coincide with what he intended. "Humph! You're seeking death." Even though Abu Tong didn't say anything, he was provoked by Wang Chong's words. Deep within him, he made up his mind to teach Wang Chong an excruciating lesson he would never forget. While he didn't intend to let Wang Chong off the hook easily from the start, Wang Chong's actions had further strengthened his resolve. Xianxia had used his connections with King Qi to suppress the other instructors. Even though he could only stall them for a short moment, it was more than sufficient to teach Wang Chong a lesson. Boom! Abu Tong stepped heavily against the ground, and the earth immediately tremored. At the same time, A furious wind blew, and Abutong's robe fluttered. A greenish-black halo slowly surged out from beneath Abutong's feet. Unlike usual martial halos, the emergence of Abutong's halo caused a slight tinge of scarlet to appear in the air, and these scarlet tinges swiftly gathered together to form thousands of minute bloody edges. The trembling of these thousands of minute bloody edges sliced the air in the surroundings into innumerable pieces. Seeing the unique halo and the floating bloody edges in the air, everyone's heart turned cold. Even though they weren't the one crossing blows with Abutong, they could still easily sense the danger within the matter. If they were struck by those bloody edges, they would be severely injured even if they managed to avoid death. Not to mention, it would surely be an extremely gruesome sight. After Abutong summoned his martial halo, the aura he exuded also abruptly changed. He suddenly felt like a domineering and callous warrior of the battlefield, and this left everyone slightly astonished. Even Wang Chong had to view him seriously at this point. This fellow is indeed strong, Wang Chong thought. Of the Scions in the capital, how many had ever been on the battlefield and witnessed the brutality and bloodiness there? Even though most of them were skilled in martial arts, they had only engaged in friendly duels and the sort in their time. But Abutong was different. The Tongluo tribe viewed combat as an honor, and most of its members had been on the battlefield. They had witnessed the callousness of the battlefield, and even participated in it personally. Just in mental resilience alone, Abutong far exceeded most of the opponents that Wang Chong had encountered. It wouldn't be easy to deal with him. Humph! Wang Chong simply chuckled nonchalantly. Abutong might be tempered by the callousness of the battlefield, making him a difficult match for most Scions in the capital. But compared to Wang Chong, Abutong was still far lacking. The intensity and frequency of battlefields that Wang Chong had experienced was something Abutong could never imagine in his life. The thing that Abutong and the Tongluo tribe took pride in meant nothing at all to Wang Chong. Wang Chong, prepare yourself. Abutong's voice was clear and powerful, imbued with a chill that could freeze one's bones. Not only so, the furious roaring of valiant war steeds seemed to vaguely sound around him. The overwhelming bloodthirstiness originating from the brutal battlefield shook everyone's heart, and for a moment, the illusion of innumerable Azuras rising from the depths of hell flashed across everyone's minds. Hong long long, before everyone's gazes, the shadow behind Abutong warped, and an impassive and towering silhouette rose from the ground. That brawny silhouette seemed to wield incomparable strength, and the scarlet saber in his hands further accentuated his fearsome might. The Tongluo war god. Upon seeing the towering shadow behind Abutong's back, all of the Tongluo men began cheering in excitement. The Tongluo war god was the deity which the members of the Tongluo tribe had revered for the past millennia. It was a deity that represented war, death, and glory. The reason why Tongluo warriors didn't fear death was because they believed that they would return to the embrace of the Tongluo war god after their deaths, and share unparalleled honor along with their deity. And the secret art of the Tongluo used this belief of theirs as its foundation. Depending on one's mastery of the technique, differing Tongluo war gods would be formed by one. Even though their young master was only able to produce the primary form of the Tongluo war god, just a simple silhouette, it was still an astounding feat already. At the very least, no true martial realm one-dan cultivator would be able to stand against this. Young master! Kill him! Blinded by excitement, a Tongluo youth yelled in their native tongue as he waved his hands in agitation. The martial arts of the Tongluo weren't created for the purpose of sparring, but for war and slaughter. Boom! As soon as Abutong drove his stellar energy to its maximum and summoned the Tongluo war god, his figure immediately disappeared from the spot he was standing at. An incomparably powerful but savage aura burst from Abutong. With a scarlet flash of light, he charged forth like a streak of lightning. This time, his speed was far swifter than before. Immense might gathered in his right fist as he thrust it forward, executing yet another secret art of the Tongluo tribe, Legion Crusher. Boom! A formidable shock wave rushed into the surrounding as Abutong smashed it into Wang Chong. The tiles on the ground immediately cracked into fragments, and dust billowed into the sky. Abu Tong, is this all you can do? A cold sneer sounded behind Abu Tong. Hearing everyone's shocked exclamations, Abu Tong turned around, only to see 3 identical Wang Chongs standing behind him. Phantom steps. Gongzi has mastered it. Around 10 steps away, Su Qi, Nie Yen, Gao Feng, and the others' faces immediately glowed in delight. They all knew that Wang Chong was skilled in an extremely unique movement technique known as phantom steps. They had witnessed the wonders of it before. But what they were unaware of was that Wang Chong had already managed to master the phantom steps to its pinnacle, allowing him to form 3 identical illusions of himself simultaneously. Perhaps others might just regard this secret art as a means of escape and dodging, but everyone knew that its uses would far exceed just those in Wang Chong's hands. Great! With this secret art, Gongzi will at least be able to fight on equal grounds with Abu Tong. Zhuang Zhangping exclaimed excitedly. As long as Abu Tong was unable to determine which Wang Chong was the real one, it would be difficult for him to land a blow. On the contrary, he might even unwittingly expose his vulnerabilities instead. In the deflecting blade manner, everyone had crossed hands with Wang Chong, so they were well aware of this. Wang Chong's cultivation realm might not seem to be any higher than them, but somehow he was always able to find their flaw and exploit it. Heh! Interesting. Abu Tong's eyes studied the 3 illusions for a moment before abruptly chuckling. Wang Chong's movement technique might be profound, but Abu Tong had seen his fair share of formidable movement techniques as well. In his view, that movement technique was nothing more than a fanciful performance. It was precisely this kind of technique that proved to be the most useless on the battlefield. In the end, a battle between martial artists still relied on true strength. Wang Chong, I have no idea what you're up to, but if you think you can defeat me like that, then I must say that you are sorely underestimating me. Abu Tong smiled derisively. It wasn't out of sheer luck that he was able to walk out of battlefields alive. Wang Chong was using the technique on the wrong person. Today, he was determined to make Wang Chong lose tragically. Wang! In just an instant, Abu Tong had already changed his blows. Hong Long! Amidst the tremoring of space, the Tong Luo war god behind Abu Tong raised his arms up high and roared. And just as the roar occurred, the thousands of bloody edges around Abu Tong suddenly rotated furiously, and with a shrill whiz, they flew toward Wang Chong. There were simply too many of those bloody edges. They sealed the space all around Wang Chong, sealing every last one of his paths of escape. Even his illusions were locked down. This is bad. Retreat. Gongzi, careful. The entire scene immediately plunged into chaos. The fearsome, trembling and bloody edges weren't just directed toward Wang Chong. Even those behind him were within its area of attack. This was a habit of the Tongluo tribe. The members of the Tongluo tribe would never hold back. As long as they could slaughter their enemies, they had no qualms regarding the means. This was the same for duels amongst the members of the Tongluo tribe themselves. No one would hold back in a battle, so the fight between fellow Tongluo tribe members tended to be extremely intense as well. In fact, there was a significant number of deaths each year as a result. Abu Tong's move had embroiled everyone within it. This move won't work on me. Seeing the huge number of bloody edges sealing every single inch of space around him, Wang Chong began chuckling instead. In the next instant, without any warning, Wang Chong flicked his fingers, and so, sword chi that was as thin as a spider's net but extended over a length of a dozen zhang shot out from his 10 fingers. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of sword chi were shot out, and all of them struck multiple bloody edges accurately. And the sharp bloody edges immediately broke apart like fragile glass upon encountering Wang Chong's sword chi. In just a few breaths, Wang Chong had already shattered all of the dangerous bloody edges in the air. This was the result of Wang Chong's diligence during this period of time. Wang Chong had continuously tempered his sword chi, compressing them and bulking them up over and over again, and the final result was that he was able to easily shoot a dozen sword chi from his fingers, and perfectly control the angle and force of every single one of them as well. Abu Tong's Tongluo secret art was formidable, but it was not worth a mention before Wang Chong's art of life massacre. Hong Long. Just as Wang Chong shattered every single bloody edges in the surroundings, a powerful fist suddenly tore through space and crushed down on him. Abu Tong possessed sharp instincts that allowed him to see and seize all possible opportunities to destroy his opponent. Even though his thousands of bloody edges had been shattered, Abu Tong still gained an opportunity to get into close quarters with the real Wang Chong and land a fist on him. If this is what you wish, Wang Chong chuckled. To everyone's astonishment, instead of dodging, Wang Chong raised his fist and faced Abu Tong's fearsome punch instead. Gongzi! From behind, Zhuang Zhengping and Su Qi's heart tightened, and their lips turned dry. No one could have thought that Wang Chong would actually face Abu Tong straight on. Given that Wang Chong's cultivation realm was beneath Abu Tong's, and his movement technique was far superior to the latter, the logical course of action should be to dodge. Yet Wang Chong chose the most disadvantageous option. Hong Long. A powerful shock wave surged through the area, and before everyone's astounded gaze, Wang Chong's arm trembled for a moment before catching Abu Tong's fist perfectly. Wang! Abu Tong's face twisted in astonishment. Impossible! Abu Tong stared at Wang Chong in disbelief. He knew the depths of his strength, and even a true martial realm Wundan expert would find it difficult to withstand his blow, needless to say, an origin energy realm martial artist. Yet, Wang Chong actually managed to withstand his attack. How could something like this happen? The powerful rebound he felt from his arm further amplified his shock. Abu Tong had gone through many battles, but he had never met such a situation before. How could this fellow be so strong? The Tong Luo tribe members behind Abu Tong was completely astonished by the sight before them. They were even more stupefied than Abu Tong by this conclusion. Abu Tong was the young master of their Tong Luo tribe, and he possessed incredible talents. No one could have expected Wang Chong to be able to withstand Abu Tong's attack. Faced with such an unexpected situation, they began to panic. Before this, they possessed no doubt about Abu Tong's victory, but at this moment, their faith was shaking. Humph! Abu Tong, you're too arrogant. It can't be that you thought that you were the strongest person in this training camp. As Wang Chong's fist kept Abu Tong firmly at bay, he gazed upon the latter's astonishment nonchalantly, as if he had expected all of this. After mastering might of the barbaric god, Wang Chong was able to call upon the incarnation of the barbaric god, allowing him to rival a true martial realm expert in terms of strength. Even though his stamina was still lacking in comparison, after all, the gap between an origin energy realm and true martial realm couldn't be breached that easily. It was still more than enough for him to withstand a blow from Abu Tong. Pong! With a burst of stellar energy, Wang Chong jolted Abu Tong away, and the both of them pulled apart. Since you have made your move, it should be my turn now. A confident smirk surfaced on Wang Chong's lips as he looked at Abu Tong. With that previous clash, Wang Chong had gained a good idea of Abu Tong's fighting style, the might of his halo, his speed, and his reflexes. So, it was time for him to retaliate. Abu Tong, if you can withstand this attack from me, I'll admit that I'm not a match for you. Before Abu Tong's astonished gaze, Wang Chong exerted the strongest secret art he had at his disposal, or perhaps, even the strongest secret art within the origin energy realm. If he couldn't even defeat Abu Tong with this move, it would basically mean that he would be unable to defeat the latter at all. 8 steps of the furious flood dragon. Wang Chong stepped forward, and a tempestuous aura suddenly burst forth from him. The incredible energy from it twisted even space itself. All anyone saw was the flicker of a shadow when Wang Chong disappeared right before their eyes. Shit! A strong sense of danger suddenly struck Abu Tong's heart. This was the first time he had felt threatened throughout the fight. Without any hesitation, Abu Tong immediately summoned yet another set of 1,000 bloody edges and shot them in the surroundings. But nevertheless, Abu Tong was still too late. Pong 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 pong. 8 deafening explosions boomed in the air. But unlike the previous time where the fist imprints scattered in the surroundings, all of the punches were aimed at the same point. Roar! Vaguely, one could see 8 flood dragons rampaging in the surroundings. Before anyone could fully comprehend what was going on, a loud cry echoed. The stellar energy surrounding Abu Tong, along with the 1,000 dangerous bloody edge around him, were shattered by the frenzied might of the 8 blows instantaneously. And after crushing the layer of stellar energy around Abutong, the furious might crashed heavily into him. Abutong could barely yell out before he was crushed down into the ground by Wang Chong's 8 steps of the furious flood dragon. This is bad. Young master, hurry up and stop him. The faces of the dozen Tongluo youths immediately warped in astonishment. Without any hesitation, they charged forward in an attempt to save Abutong. If anyone dares to move, I'll kill him. With a flash of shadow, Wang Chong leaped across space and sat on top of Abutong. Holding the latter down with his left hand, he raised his right hand and punched Abutong heavily. Fearful that Wang Chong would really injure their young master, they could only stop. Wang Chong, you dare! Savagery flashed across Huorja's eyes. With Abutong held captive, he had become the Tongluo youth's de facto leader. Huorja also never expected such an outcome, but regardless of the situation, he had to get his young master back safely. Wang Chong, if our young master suffers any injury, you won't be able to withstand the wrath of our Tongluo tribe, Huorja threatened, fury burning in his eyes. The Tongluo tribe did take pride in dying in battle, but that didn't mean that they didn't value of their tribesmen. If Wang Chong dared to do anything to Abutong, the 30,000 Tongluo elites would surely charge up to the Wang clan and make them regret this dearly. Humph! Hearing Huorja's words, Wang Chong's eyes turned cold, and rage rose in his chest. He had long heard that the Tongluo tribe often threatened others with the might of their cavalry in the capital. Even the scions of powerful clans weren't spared from this. After all, the Tongluo was a warrior clan. To avoid unnecessary trouble, most would choose to stay out of their path. But it was a pity that they had encountered the wrong opponent. Humph! Are you all planning to revolt? Grabbing Abutong by his neck, Wang Chong lifted the latter up from the ground. An incredibly cold aura suddenly burst forth from him, turning the atmosphere so frigid as if it was the middle of winter. Even Su Qi, Nie Yen, and the others couldn't help but be astonished by this turn of events. Where do you think you are? With those 30,000 men of yours, you still dare to start a rebellion in Great Tang? Give it a try, then. Let's see how every single last one of your 30,000 Tongluo cavalry will be beheaded for leaving the military barracks without any deployment order. Wang Chong was the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains in his previous life, and the blood which had drenched his hands could fill a river. If the Tongluo thought that they could threaten him like that, they were truly barking up the wrong tree. If a rebellion is what you want, I'll exceed your wish then. Chi! A cold gleam flashed, and a 3-chi sword was stabbed into Abutong's left shoulder. Blood began trickling down the sword. Bastard! You lunatic! The eyes of the Tongluo youths turned red with agitation at Wang Chong's actions. If not for their young master being held hostage, they would have dashed forward to rip the latter into pieces. No one could have thought that Wang Chong would really dare to lay his hands on Abutong. And what further infuriated them was that they were completely helpless in this situation. They were all intimidated by Wang Chong's attitude. The latter's expression and disposition were so compelling that they had no doubts that he would dare to kill even Abutong. In the capital, there were no scions who wouldn't concede to the Tongluo tribe. Putting all aside, even though Great General Abusi didn't have many soldiers under his command, he was still a trusted aide of the Sage Emperor, a person on equal standing with Fuming Lingcha, Wang Chongxi, Zhang Shogui, Go Xianji, and Gushu Han. Just based on this, no one would dare to trifle with the Tongluo tribe. On top of that, the Chamberlain of Dependencies had also emphasized time and time again that they should give in to the Hu's customs and tolerate them. But simply none of this worked on Wang Chong. Looking at the fiery-eyed Tongluo youths, Wang Chong sneered. He was willing to even speak up about a matter as dangerous as the regional commander incident, so how could he possibly fear their threats? To attempt to threaten Wang Chong was a joke in and of itself. Furthermore, after the regional commander incident, if Wang Chong didn't make a stern warning out of these Tongluo youths, such a matter would only happen again and again. I'll be taking Abutong with me. If you dare to pursue me, be prepared to suffer the consequences. With a firm grip on Abu Tong, Wang Chong lifted the ladder up. Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weisi, take Chen Burang along with us. We'll be heading to the deflecting blade manor. Saying so, Wang Chong turned around and left. There were some mutterings in the perimeter of the area already, and it seemed like the instructors of Kunwu training camp were currently rushing to the area. Needless to say, someone must have informed them. Abu Tong had intended to lay a trap for Wang Chong, but it turned against him instead. They had intentionally diverted all of the instructors away from the main peak previously, and to call them back only at this moment was too late. Abu Tong himself doesn't wield so much influence as to interfere in the affairs of Kunwu training camp. Without a doubt, King Qi is involved in this matter as well. Wang Chong thought as a figure surfaced in his mind, Xianxia. Wang Chong vaguely recalled that the King Qi's faction which Deng Mingxin was under was headed by a recruit in Kunwu training camp known as Xianxia. Wang Chong didn't believe that Xianxia would neglect such a good opportunity to deal with him. Wang Chong soon departed with Abu Tong. With the unconscious Abu Tong hidden in the group, not even the instructors outside could tell that anything was amiss. Besides, the instructors of Kunwu training camp were plagued with many duties. They weren't so free as to interfere in everything they saw. Damn it! A while after Wang Chong left, Zhang Xian and a few instructors finally arrived at the scene. Seeing the empty main hall, Zhang Xian's face darkened. He had never expected Wang Chong to be able to defeat Abu Tong. His plan had failed utterly. After an unknown period of time, Abu Tong was woken up by a cold breeze around him. Opening his eyes, he realized that he was a few dozen meters away from the ground, and a strong mountain wind was battering his body. Bastard! You bastard! I will never forgive you. As soon as Abu Tong came to, he immediately began struggling with all his might. Wang Chong, I swear I will kill you. A furious voice resounded clearly across the area. Abu Tong, if I am you, I would choose to remain silent so as to avoid attracting the recruits of the entire training camp over. At this moment, a leisurely voice sounded beneath him. Along with 8 other people, Wang Chong sat at a table beneath the pole, calmly sipping on a cup of tea. Though I guess you might not care about it anymore, since all of your Tongluo subordinates have already seen your state. In midair, Abu Tong suddenly shuddered in fear. Gazing downward, he saw a majestic manor, and below the manor, at the halfway mark of the mountain, he saw Huorja and the other Tongluo youths looking in his direction in agitation, fury, and peculiarity. However, that wasn't the most shocking blow. The most shocking blow was his realization of his current state. He was currently being hung on a pole 7 to 8 zhang above the ground completely naked. In realization of that fact, Abu Tong's face immediately turned ghastly white. Why you? Abu Tong's entire body trembled, and his eyes blazed with fury. The immense humiliation he felt so infuriated him that he nearly fainted on the spot. You? This is just a small punishment for you. Seated on the purple rattan chair, Wang Chong continued sipping on his fragrant cup of tea calmly. It was Gao Feng who spoke up on his behalf. Just to add on, even though many people have seen your unimpressive body, there are still many who have yet to. If you wish to rally them over, feel free to do so. I don't think I will mind sharing this site with the entire training camp. Wang Chong spoke leisurely. With this reminder from Wang Chong, Abu Tong finally noticed the crowd gazing over here from White Tiger Peak. They seemed to be muttering something as their fingers pointed at him. Abu Tong's heart immediately froze. His anger was washed away by embarrassment and fright. He had lost to Wang Chong, but he didn't expect Wang Chong to utilize such extreme means on him. This was a huge humiliation. Anxiety, fury, embarrassment, and fright came gushing into Abu Tong simultaneously. Under the clash of all those intense emotions, his grievous wounds acted up, and he fainted once more. Gongzi, is it really fine for us to do this? On the opposite end of the rectangular table, Chun Burang held onto a cup of tea with a slightly unnerved expression. This matter had arisen because of him, so he felt guilty over this incident. He hadn't seen what had happened in between, as he was unconscious, but he was worried by the way Wang Chong had dealt with Abu Tong. After all, Abu Tong was the son of great General Abusi. Getting on the wrong side with a great general of the empire truly wasn't a wise decision. Humph, what are you frightened of? If we don't teach him a harsh lesson, will he learn to be obedient? Wang Chong waved his hands nonchalantly. Besides, the goal of this isn't just to humiliate him. More importantly, it is to deter others from doing the same so as to terminate the problem at its stem. At the very least, with this precedent, they will have to consider whether it will be worth the risk. The group silently nodded in agreement. In truth, they agreed with Wang Chong's method of handling this matter. There were some things that they couldn't afford to do, but Wang Chong, as the grandson of Duke Jiu, could do it in their stead. Since Wang Chong was involved in this matter, Abu Tong would be unable to make use of the influence behind him to get even. Burang listened to Gongzi's words. Gongzi knows what he is doing, Su Qi advised from the side. Qin Burang was simply too kind. Even Su Qi felt furious when he saw the Tong Luo youths viciously beating him up, and yet the person in question didn't feel a thing at all. It was fortunate that Gongzi's recovery pill was effective, allowing Chun Burang's injuries to heal swiftly. At this moment, the hideous swelling on his face had already been alleviated. Chun Burang hesitated for a moment, but he still nodded eventually. He still felt guilty over this incident, but he had trust in Wang Chong's judgment. This trust wasn't just due to Wang Chong's background, but the trust one had for comrades who had been through a life-and-death situation together. Not to mention, Wang Chong had even met the Sage Emperor personally and stormed through the regional commander's incident. The deeds he had achieved were unimaginable for those of his age. It's about time. The training camp should be dispatching someone over soon. Su Qi, take 2 people with you to escort Abu Tong to the training camp later on. We'll hang him there for a while longer before letting him go. Wang Chong instructed. Yes, Gongzi, Su Qi nodded, tapping his right forefinger lightly on the table. Wang Chong turned to Chun Burang and said, Burang, in the future, you should bring your bow along with you wherever you go. Your martial arts might be acceptable, but it is far from sufficient to deal with someone of Abu Tong's class. However, if you were to have a bow in your hands, I doubt that even Abu Tong will be able to do anything to you. Chun Burang actually wasn't weak at all, but he was crippled without his bow. If he had his weapon in hand then, Abu Tong's group would have suffered serious casualties for their actions. Chun Burang nodded humbly. For the time being, you shouldn't visit the cultivation ground on the main peak. Also, I have something to tell you all. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong revealed his discovery of a spirit vein to everyone. Upon hearing that Wang Chong actually owned a huge spirit vein, everyone was dumbstruck. Even Chun Burang also stared at Wang Chong in shock, realizing how huge an affair this was. Even though he grew up hunting in the forest, he wasn't living in isolation from the world. Naturally, he knew what a spirit vein was. Kunwu training camp was built right on a small spirit vein. Spirit veins were extremely hard to come by, and even prestigious clans were dying to lay their hands on one. And yet, Wang Chong actually said that he possessed a spirit vein. Actually, I intended to tell you all this matter a little later, but since such a thing has happened, there's no wait any longer, Wang Chong said impassively. The deflecting blade manner was actually a part of the spirit vein. It was through this benefit that Wang Chong intended to entice people to join his faction. Wang Chong was intending to tell the others about this a little later, but he had changed his mind due to several reasons. First, this could help to reduce conflicts. Also, this would allow Chun Burang, Su Qi, and the others to raise their cultivation swiftly, so that they wouldn't be so vulnerable should such a situation occur once more. Gongzi, are you speaking the truth? Nye Yen spoke in a trembling tone. Even now, he still found it hard to believe that Wang Chong actually possessed a spirit vein. Such a thing was so rare and out of their reach that it was nearly a myth to them. The worth of a spirit vein was truly incalculable. It was precisely this that made everything so hard to believe. Seeing their confused looks, Wang Chong chuckled. You will know once you see it. At that moment, 2 familiar figures suddenly appeared at the entrance of the deflecting blade manor. Brother Jiang, Brother Chai, Wang Chong greeted. These were the two men who visited Wang Chong after the Gogrian's night assault, and presented him with a gift. They were both the children of illustrious dukes of Great Tang. One of their ancestors was a meritorious subject who stabilized the western regions, while the other was a mighty general who conquered the world alongside Emperor Taizong. Are the both of you here for Abutong as well? Wang Chong dove straight into the topic. That's indeed the case. I apologize, Brother Wang, but we weren't able to turn down the request. Jiang Feng and Chai Zi looked a little embarrassed. They had barely gotten acquainted with Wang Chong, so it was a little inappropriate for them to make such an abrupt request. Just that, the person who requested this matter of them possessed extraordinary standing, thus making it difficult for them to turn down the request. Since Brother Wang has already beaten and humiliated him, your anger should be placated by now. May I ask of you to let Abutong go on our account? The Wang clan and Abusi's lineage are both important pillars to the empire, and it is truly unwise to become enemies because of such a small incident. This is only detrimental to the royal court, to the Wang clan, and to the Tong Luo tribe, Jiang Feng said. As befitting the successor to a clan, his words were extremely persuasive. It seemed like Jiang Feng had been entrusted with the role of a diplomatic envoy. It is not that I am unwilling to let him go, but that he is unwilling to let me go. Brother Jiang and Brother Chai should know that it is Abutong who came knocking on my door this time. The only reason why he is the one hanging up there now is because he had underestimated my strength. If I were to simply let him go just like that, won't I be letting him off the hook too easily? Wouldn't such matters simply happen again and again? Wang Chong replied calmly. Jiang Feng and Chai Zi glanced at one another awkwardly. Naturally, they wouldn't be so foolish as to claim that it was Chun Burang who offended the Tongluo before Wang Chong. From the looks of it, it seemed like this offspring of Duke Zhou was unwilling to let this matter go easily. But since it is Brother Jiang and Brother Chai who are asking me for this favor, I can let him go. However, not now. Just when the duo thought that they would have to return in failure, Wang Chong suddenly changed his tone, giving them a spark of hope. May I know when does Brother Wang intend to let Abutong go? Jiang Feng and Chao Zi were delighted to hear those words. In truth, they didn't think that Wang Chong would accede to their request in the first place, and the reason why they headed over was due to the overwhelming pressure heaped upon them. Soon, when the timing is ripe, I'll naturally let him go, Wang Chong said calmly. May I know if he can be released by today? Jiang Feng tried to sound Wang Chong out. Wang Chong nodded in affirmation. Thank you, Brother Wang. Jiang Feng and Chai Zi immediately thanked Wang Chong profusely. To say the truth, they didn't want to do this dirty job. The Wang clan was one of the powers which the Jiang clan and Chai clan were actively trying to strengthen their ties with, and matters like this could easily sour their relationship. But the person who requested this matter of them was simply too influential. Thus, they were already gladdened by the fact that Wang Chong was willing to let Abutong go today. As for the rest, they couldn't be bothered with it. After all, the ones suffering wasn't them. Why should they? Brother Jiang and Brother Chai, why don't you sit down and have a cup of a tea as well? Wang Chong flicked 2 empty Yixing teacups over. Ha ha ha. I would love to. It's rare that Wang Gongzi is treating us to a cup of a tea. How can we possibly turn down this offer? With hearty laughs, the duo caught the teacups and took a seat. The tension on their faces alleviated slightly. As members of prestigious clans, they would often be forced into situations beyond their control. Take, for example, the incident with the Duke of Lu residence. In order to save Su Hanshan's little sister, he now owed a favor to the latter. Thus, if the Duke of Lu residence were to request help, the Wang clan would not be in a position to turn them down. This reciprocation was a common practice among prestigious clans. Having grown up in the circle, Wang Chong was well versed in such matters. After putting aside Abutong's matter, the atmosphere among the group grew relatively happy. Jiang Feng and Chai Zi also expressed their interest to join the group. Unwittingly, several hours passed. You brat, you sure know how to enjoy yourself. A deep and lively voice suddenly sounded by everyone's ears. Following which, with loud metallic clanging sounds, the armored Zhao Chenxiu and Zhou Huang strode into the room. Brat, you have had your fun already. It should be time for you to hand him over, right? Xianxia walked directly to the table, took a teacup from Wang Chong, and gulped down a cup of tea. Haha. Is Instructor Zhao here under someone's request? Wang Chong chuckled as he watched Xianxia pour himself yet another cup of tea leisurely. What nonsense are you spouting? If not for me, the other instructors in the training camp would have trampled this manner of yours already. Xianxia raised his hand and smacked the back of Wang Chong's head. He had learned of the conflict between Wang Chong and Abu Tong relatively late, because someone had intentionally hidden the news from him, and when Wang Chong gained the upper hand, someone else intentionally made the entire matter known to him. Xianxia was no fool, and he immediately realized what was going on. On one hand, Xianxia felt a little frustrated. Those bastards were simply going too far. This was a training camp that the Sage Emperor was keeping an eye on, and yet they still dared to cause trouble here. On the other, Xianxia was also displeased. This was the first time that there was such a huge conflict among the recruits, and if he were to let this matter rest easily, he would be going too easy on them. At the same time, leniency would only promote the reoccurrence of such incidences. Thus, he was determined to teach the perpetrators a heavy lesson. On this aspect, Xianxia and Wang Chong were of the same mind. Thus, Xianxia tapped into his authority to interfere in this matter. King Qi might possess vast influence, but this was limited to beyond the training camp. Even the Bureau of Military Personnel couldn't stretch their hands in here. However, Xianxia was different. The lord behind the training camps was his direct superior. Xianxia could simply find that superior of his to suppress this entire matter. Since Abu Tong was the one who caused this matter, he had to be punished firmly so as to serve as a deterrence to others. As such, Xianxia actually supported Wang Chong's actions. Brat, there is a limit to what you can do. It's about time already, so let him go, Xianxia said. Despite the strict orders against instructors getting too close with recruits, Xianxia still enjoyed Wang Chong's company. Somehow, the latter's personality seemed to suit his preferences. Su Qi, you heard Instructor Zhao's words. Take Abu Tong down. Wang Chong gestured, and with a chuckle, Su Qi and a few others immediately stepped forth to free Abu Tong from the tall pole. With this matter could be considered to have come to an end. However, this was just the beginning of Abu Tong's humiliation. Let's go. Su Qi, along with Nie Yen and Gao Feng, left by the side door. Seeing that Abu Tong was finally allowed to leave the deflecting blade manor, Jiang Feng and Chai Zi heaved a sigh of relief. Brat, don't be in such a hurry to leave. Let's play a game first. Right after Su Qi left, Xianxia immediately whipped out a Go chessboard from his sleeves and slammed it on the table. Sure. How can I possibly dare to disobey the words of Instructor Zhao? Wang Chong smiled. After losing 5 rounds to Wang Chong consecutively that day, he had become addicted to challenging Wang Chong. Thus, whenever he had time, he would visit the deflecting blade manor and grab Wang Chong for a match. Zhou Huang was the same as well. The rules of the training camp dictated that ordinary recruits couldn't leave the training camp freely. Xianxia's help was required to grant this privilege to Su Qi, Nie Yen, Gao Feng, and the others. As such, Wang Chong sat down and played around with him. Nevertheless, the disparity in abilities was simply too great. In just less than half a tea's time, Xianxia was completely crushed. Kacha! A streak of light flashed across space, and thorny vines with the thickness of an infant's arm were sliced across. A gray-robed elder with cold eyes stood up amidst shrubs. With his sharp eyes and sudden movements, the elder felt like a snake prowling the grounds, waiting to strike at its prey. An aura of danger lurked around him, warning others to keep clear. Gazing at the vast mountain filled with trees and thorns, the elder asked, Mr. Taijia, is this really the place in your divination? There's no mistake. A hunch suddenly came to me half a month ago, so I spent some time divining, and this was the result I got. Under normal circumstances, it is definitely impossible to divine this far. Even seers of equivalent prowess to me will only have a 1 in 1,000 chance after repeated divinations to zone in on this location. Behind the elder stood a dignified and scholarly Taoist, who wore a white robe with a Taiji symbol in front. The Taoist's long hair was held in place with a purple hairpin, and in his left hand was a unique gold dual-layered compass. He was currently standing above a boulder as he formed seals with his right hands, seemingly divining something ceaselessly as he surveyed the surroundings. The malicious aura is growing stronger as we advance. A blessed land concealed within malicious, an earth dragon veiled amidst nature. This geographical terrain is shaped after the famous yin-yang facade. The only way to determine the true nature of this region is to travel here, or else even the best of seers will find it hard to divine the presence of a spirit vein here. The malicious aura has the attribute of yin, whereas the spirit vein has the attribute of yang. This is a rare complementation of yin-yang. I am certain that we're getting closer and closer to our destination. The Taoist holding onto the compass said. A purple hairpin to determine one's destiny. 2 geomantic compasses to crush yin-yang. If Wang Chong was here, he would surely recognize the Taoist present here as the famous Mr. Taijia of the capital. Among yin-yang practitioners who divulged the secrets of the heaven, Mr. Taijia was one of the most esteemed figures in the field. Many had heard of his affairs, but very few knew him. Furthermore, he was under the direct command of the royal family. Mr. Taijia, I know not of divination. I work only for the welfare of the third prince. I believe that you should know how highly His Highness thinks of this matter. If there's indeed a huge spirit vein in the deep mountains, it'll definitely become an invaluable support to His Highness's goals. Thus, I hope that you won't disappoint His Highness, the gray-robed elder said. Phantom hands, don't worry. It's impossible for there to be any mistakes in my divination. Let's proceed ahead. I'll bring you to the secret spirit vein that no one knows of. Mr. Taijia replied confidently. The elder known as Phantom Hands nodded silently. With a wave of his hands, the yellow-robed guards that came along with them began paving the way once more. The journey was plagued with thorns, poisonous insects, venomous worms, and ferocious beasts. It was already their 3rd day on the mountain, but regardless of whether it was the unfathomable elder known as Phantom Hands, the seer that many addressed as Mr. Taijia, or the powerful-looking guards who clearly came from a distinguished background, none uttered a word of complaint at all. Standing within the expansive mountain range, the group trudged forward like an insignificant group of ants, searching for their goal. Just as everyone was fatigued by the journey, Mr. Taijia abruptly pointed forward while gazing at his compass, and he exclaimed with a particularly excited tone, I have found it! It is right in front. The compass in his left hand was trembling far more than it had throughout the journey. Upon hearing those words, the crowd was revitalized, and immediately paved the way with greater vigor. Kacha! When last few thorny vines and trees were knocked apart, the sight before them abruptly opened up. Standing beneath a few large trees, they saw a verdant mountain of several hundred zhang tall towering right before them, like a resting colossal dragon. A primordial aura drifted in the surroundings. Even if Mr. Taijia didn't say anything at this point, everyone could feel the heightened concentration of spiritual energy in the air. Under a slight breeze carrying the concentrated spiritual energy, the gray-robed elder shuddered in comfort, and he found his fatigue being washed away. Wonderful! The elder trembled in excitement. They had spent 4 days trudging arduously through the wilderness, but their diligence had paid off. Finally, they had found the treasure hidden in the mountain range. With this unprecedentedly immense spirit vein, the third prince's plight would surely improve greatly. He would be able to attract and groom even more experts, thus giving him more leverage in the fight against the other princes. Mr. Taijia, you have truly contributed greatly to us this time around. His Highness will surely be delighted to learn of this. The voice of the agitated Phantom Hands was slightly higher than usual. Hurry up and send a messenger to inform His Highness of this matter dash. But before Phantom Hands could finish his words, a shocked exclamation sounded in the air. How could this be? Lord, look over there. How can there be houses over here? The royal guards pointed to the peak of the mountain and uttered in astonishment. Phantom Hands, along with the exhausted Mr. Taijia, immediately jolted in shock. They hurriedly lifted their gazes in the direction the guard was pointing at. Hong Long. Unfolding before their flabbergasted gazes were several majestic golden palaces rising amidst the clouds. As though lightning had struck him, phantom hands froze. Dumbfounded, Mr. Taijia didn't even realize that he had dropped the golden dual-layered geomantic compass in his hands. How could this be? This was the only thought that filled Mr. Taijia's mind in this very moment. Stunned. Everyone was stunned. This was especially so for Mr. Taijia and Phantom Hands. Their mouths were wide open, but not a single word would come out. Taijia, what is going on? Didn't you say that this is a plot of undeveloped land, and no one else except for us is aware of it? The livid Phantom Hands spewed out these words one by one through gritted teeth. This shouldn't be possible, Mr. Taijia uttered as he stepped forward. He hadn't noticed Phantom Hands' words at all. Astonishment had consumed him completely. His divination mastery had already reached the peak a dozen years ago. There were very few in the capital who could compete with him in this field. Based on his divination, this land should be completely unknown to anyone other than him. It was impossible for anyone to beat him to it. But reality was showing him a very different picture. Someone found this location way faster than him. The elegant infrastructures and the cluster of buildings, it was impossible to build all of those without a lengthy period of construction. Mister, is there any chance that they haven't noticed the spirit vein yet? 3 royal guards of the third prince asked hopefully. That's not possible. Mr. Taijia refuted the suggestion without any hesitation. The place is extremely remote, and it is a far distance away from the main route. If they hadn't noticed something, they wouldn't have built such elaborate structures here. But is there a chance that they are just to tour around? Do you think that they will tour in a place where venomous snakes roam? The question rendered the guards speechless. On the journey here, they had imagined all kinds of scenarios, be it whether the spirit vein didn't exist at all, or that Mr. Taijia had miscalculated. The one and only scenario they had failed to take into account was that someone had beat them to the spirit vein. Looking at the rows of buildings on the peak of the mountain, all their hearts turned cold. Mr. Taijia, is this the spirit vein you have divined for us? Phantom Hands asked with a frigid voice. At this moment, his eyes were blazing with fury. If not for the third prince's high regard for the diviner, he would have long killed the man for this farce. This is indeed the spirit vein, Mr. Taijia said, but before he could finish his words, Phantom Hands interjected in displeasure. Then you divine again. So, the diviner stretched out his hand, and the golden dual-layered geomantic compass immediately flew into Mr. Taijia's hands. Casually picking a leaf near the spirit vein, Mr. Taijia began his divination. How can this be? The abruptly different results Taijia saw left him stunned. The consecutive divination over the course of the past few days had left his face pale. But at this moment, it looked as though it was completely drained of color. He had spent his entire life dabbling in divination, and he was extremely confident of his own divinations. However, Taijia suddenly realized that his divination was inaccurate. In his entire life, this was the first time he had received an uncertain result. How can this be? What is going on? The trembling Taijia muttered under his breath anxiously. The confidence he had built over the years was shattered all of a sudden. Is it the malicious aura? No, the malicious aura can't possibly affect my results by so much. There must be other factors in place. The mist concealing the river. This is an intervention from an external force. Who in the world is the person who built these structures to interfere in my divination? Staring at the towering palace-like buildings that rose into the clouds, Taijia's mind was in a state of chaos. The results he had received on his compass was the phenomenon of the mist concealing the river. This was a divination that would only appear when meeting those possessing extremely strong destiny, resulting in an inconclusive divination. However, with his high mastery in the art of divination, he had divined for innumerable people, ranging from the prestigious kings and nobles to the officials and scions, but he had never encountered such a situation before. Glancing at the spirit vein amidst the clouds, Taijia immediately made a divination regarding the mastermind who managed to beat him to the spirit vein. No matter what, he was determined to uncover the identity of the man who was able to interfere even with his divination. Wang. As if a boulder had fallen from the sky, Taijia suddenly felt incomparably heavy. The resilience of the other party's destiny was far stronger than he thought. Who in the world is that person? Taijia's heart turned cold. He had barely started his divination when a pressure reminiscent of a falling mountain crushed down on him. This was a situation he had never encountered in the past. But this only served to further fuel his curiosity. The third prince had regarded this operation with utmost importance, and Taijia knew that he would have to provide him an answer regardless of the situation. Boom! Just as Taijia gathered his determination to continue his divination, an immense power from the world suddenly struck him as if a bolt of lightning. Immense pain grasped Taijia's heart, and blood flowed from his nostrils. He had already been weakened from the fatigue of consecutive divinations, and this blow added injury to his wound. In an instant, the sight before him darkened, and he fell backward. Mr. Taijia! Mr. Taijia! Mr. Astonished, the group of men hurried forward to grab Taijia. Lord, what do we do now? The group turned toward Phantom Hands. Don't worry, he has just fainted out of exhaustion. Phantom Hands replied after placing his fingers on the pulse on Taijia's neck. Even though he was incapable of divination, he had learned some basic knowledge about it following behind the third prince, and he knew that divination was extremely exhausting on one's spirit. The more thorough and uncharted the divination was, the more tiring it would be. Clearly, Mr. Taijia had overexerted himself and fainted as a result. You got off the hook easily, Phantom Hands muttered quietly as he stood up from the ground. He was still bubbling with rage, but with Master Taijia fainted, there was nowhere he could vent his anger, so he could only let it go. Lord, what do we do now? His Highness bears high expectations for this operation. Why don't we kill the men on the mountain? As long as we move carefully, we should be able to succeed without leaving behind any traces. A guard stepped forward and proposed. As he spoke, he made the aggressive gesture of sliding his thumb across his neck. They were all the elites of the third prince's guard. As long as the command was issued, it shouldn't be too difficult for them to wipe out the group on the mountain. Wait a moment. Even though Phantom Hands had the same thought in mind, he knew better than to act so recklessly. There's no hurry in this matter. Let's ask about this matter at the Court of Judicial Review first, to confirm whether this plot of land is taken or not. If it isn't, we shall take it down, and they would have to evacuate no matter how many buildings they have constructed on the mountain. On the other hand, if the land is sold to someone without a sufficiently powerful background, we will have a good talk with them. We will have them sell the land to us using the third prince's name. And if he refuses to budge, we'll just get rid of him and clear away his men here. Phantom Hands' thoughts were extremely rational. It seemed like it wasn't the first time he had conducted such a deed. But what if the other party has a powerful background? A guard asked. Humph! Phantom Hands sneered in disdain as a cold, piercing gleam shone from his eyes. Do you think that there's anyone with a background larger than the third prince? Understood! Everyone lowered their heads and responded. Without alarming anyone, the group carried Mr. Taijia and descended the mountain. They were unaware that several li away, a pair of eyes was silently staring at every single of actions of theirs. Only when they finally left with Mr. Taijia in their hands did the demonic emperor old man sigh deeply and close his eyes. Surprisingly, it didn't take them much effort to uncover the identity of the man they were looking for in the Court of Judicial Review. There was a map of the geographical terrain around the capital there. They only had to point at the location of the mountain to receive the information they wanted. Phantom Hands and the others had hypothesized this situation numerous times, but when they heard the name of the owner of the spirit vein, they were still stunned. Wang Chong, the man who caused a huge uproar in the royal court via the regional commander's incident, alarming even the sage emperor? Duke Zhou's grandson? The offspring of the Wang clan? Everyone, including Taijia who had barely awoken, was startled to hear the answer. That was truly a person who was strong background. No one had expected the Wang clan to actually be involved in this matter. The third prince was a son of the royal family, a potential successor to the throne. In the Central Plains, all powers were nothing more than a joke before him. This was also the reason why Phantom Hands had no fear at the start. But if the Wang clan was involved, this would cast some doubt on the matter. No one could say what the result of the clash would be. The Wang clan didn't have any members who possessed the royal bloodline, but their standing was comparable to one, perhaps exceeding it even. When the Sage Emperor was younger, it was the old master of the Wang clan who supported him taking the throne. The Sage Emperor had said on more than one occasion that if not for the old master of the Wang clan, Duke Zhou, he wouldn't have achieved so much in his lifetime. Great Tang wouldn't be as prosperous as it was, either. In fact, even after the old master of the Wang clan retired, the Sage Emperor even established a four-quarters embassy to house him so that he could seek the other party's advice whenever required. Through this, one could see the standing of the Wang clan in the royal court. If the old master of the Wang clan were to report a complaint to the Sage Emperor regarding the third prince would be in trouble. Everyone suddenly felt hesitant. They dared not make a move at all. The Wang clan mustn't be offended. Even if the third prince learned of this matter, he would surely stop them from doing something as risky as this. What is going on? How did that fellow learn of the spirit vein's existence? Is that son of the Wang clan that formidable? Phantom Hands was a person who wouldn't even blink when a blade was pressed against his neck. But at this moment, a deep frown surfaced on his forehead. He suddenly realized that this matter was far more complicated than he had expected. "Lord, what do we do now?" the leader of the guards asked. "We should lay low for the moment and reconsider our options. The Wang clan is not a power we can trifle with at the moment. We can only find another solution to this matter," Phantom Hands replied as he grabbed his aching head. "So the owner of those structures is him?" At the same time, many thoughts were whirling inside the awoken Master Taijia's head. He had spent his life around the royal family and the nobility of the capital. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a strong interest in the legendary 15-year-old child of the capital. A person who could result in the failure of his divination couldn't possibly be someone ordinary. No matter what, he was determined to uncover the secrets hidden on that young man. With such thoughts in mind, Master Taijia, Phantom Hands, and the others left the Court of Judicial Review. 3 days later, an earth-shattering news took the entire capital by storm. A massive spirit vein was found amidst the mountain range less than 30 li beyond the capital. The spiritual energy gathered on the spirit vein was tenfold more than Xinwei, Longwei, and Kunwu, as well as the spirit veins located around the capital. Even if they were to take the entire world into scope, there were probably very few spirit veins who could compare with it. 10 days of training on the spirit vein could easily match several months of hard work elsewhere. As soon as the news hit the street, a huge uproar rose in the capital. And along with the news, another familiar name also reached the ears of the crowd. Wang Chong. The talk with Xianxia went very successfully, as expected of the instructor in charge of imparting the art of commanding. His standing towered far beyond the other instructors, allowing the matter regarding Gaofeng, Nieyan, and the others to be resolved very quickly. Gaofeng, Nieyan, Su Qi, Chun Burang, and Sun Jiming were originally banned from leaving the training camp without permission, but with Zhao Qianqiu's backing, they managed to receive the privilege to do so. While they weren't completely unrestrained like the recruits under Zhao Qianqiu, such as Wang Chong and Su Hanshan, they were at least allowed to move freely for half a month for every month now. Without wasting any time, Wang Chong immediately sent them to the spirit vein to train so as to prevent a situation such as that with Abu Tong from occurring once more. At the same time, the rise in their cultivation would also be beneficial for the wars that would occur in the future. They were the generals that Wang Chong had his eyes on in the future. The stronger they were, the greater Great Tang's hope for survival was. Wang Chong. Wang Gongzi. 3 days later, in the deflecting blade manor, just as Wang Chong was brewing a pot of Tai Guan Yin while basking under the hot sun, deafening shouts suddenly rose outside. Accompanying those excited shoutings were flurried footsteps that seemed to indicate a huge crowd was swiftly nearing the manor. What is going on? Wang Chong nearly dropped the teacup in his hands from the abrupt shouts. He and Zhao Jingdian glanced at one another in astonishment. The deflecting blade manor was a distance away from Kunwu training camp. On top of that, for fear of a backlash from the royal court, Wang Chong had also moved very carefully in his recruitment process. As such, other than him and the others, very few people would come here. Thus, something was clearly amiss with the ruckus outside. Jingdian, go and take a look, Wang Chong instructed as he glanced outside. Nodding, Zhao Jingdian placed his teacup back on the table before heading out. Under Wang Chong's influence, he was slowly growing interested in tea as well. Wang Chong thought that Zhao Jingdian would return swiftly, but it took half a tea's time before Zhao Jingdian finally re-emerged at the doorstep of the courtyard with a look of astonishment on his face. What is going on? Wang Chong frowned. Gongzi, there are many people outside. All of them have expressed their interest in joining the deflecting blade manor, Zhao Jingdian said after organizing his thoughts momentarily, a bizarre expression on his face. What? Wang Chong was taken aback. Pressing his hands against the violet rattan chairs, he abruptly stood up in shock. Join the deflecting blade manor? He hadn't even sent out the invitations yet. Why would there be so many people here? I'll go out and take a look. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong immediately walked out of the courtyard. Hong! The mountain wind blew. As soon as Wang Chong stepped out from the gates of the deflecting blade manor, a deafening ruckus immediately filled his ears. In that instant, he felt as though he had stepped into an entirely different world. Zhao Jingdian had said that many people were here, but Wang Chong only got a clear idea of what many represented at this moment. The crowd on the mountain definitely numbered in the thousands. It seemed as if all the recruits from White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, and Azure Dragon were all here. Wang Gongzi, please accept me. Wang Gongzi, I wish to join your deflecting blade manor. Me too. Choose me. Wang Gongzi is here. Let's go. Upon seeing Wang Chong, the faces of the crowd immediately flushed with excitement. To Wang Chong's shock, there were quite a few ladies from the Vermilion Bird Peak here as well. However, their chatter formed a stark contrast with the others in the surroundings. So that's Wang Chong. He looks dashing. Wang Chong's mind plunged into chaos. What was going on? Why were there so many people expressing their interest to join his deflecting blade manor? Lad, these people are here to join the deflecting blade manor. For some reason, they found out that we have extended our invitations to a few people in the training camp and rushed here to join the deflecting blade manor. Those who have rejected us initially have suddenly changed their mind as well. Most importantly of all, they seem to have found out that Gongzi is the owner of a huge spirit vein beyond the capital. Behind him, Zhao Jingdian reported the intelligence he had just gathered as he slowly walked down the slope. What? Turning around, Wang Chong stared at Zhao Jingdian in astonishment. How did these people learn of the spirit vein? He had never told anyone about the spirit vein other than his own team, and there was no way Su Qi, Gao Feng, Nie Yen, and the others would reveal the matter to another soul. Wang Chong had absolute trust in them. Furthermore, rumors have it that the spirit vein Gongzi found is exceptionally huge. The spiritual energy there is exceptionally dense, and 10 days of cultivating there can reap equivalent results to months of hard work elsewhere. Thus, the group standing before us now doesn't just consist of those from Kunwu training camp. Even those from Xinwei and Longwei are here, as well. In other words, everyone knows about the existence of the spirit vein now? Wang Chong asked. That's right. Zhao Jingdian nodded seriously. In an instant, Wang Chong's face turned grim. This matter was far more severe than he had thought. If this news wasn't just confined to Kunwu training camp, it would mean that it was known throughout the entire capital by now. Wang Chong understood the significance of a massive spirit vein. There was no power or nobility who could possibly resist this allure. In his previous life, up to the point that the spirit vein exploded, no one had noticed it despite its proximity to the capital. In that moment, there were countless who, just like Wang Chong, felt that it was a huge pity. This was also the reason why Wang Chong rushed to claim the spirit vein as soon as he acquired the resources to do so. However, how did this matter get exposed? One must know that even the Wang family guards were kept in the dark about the true nature of this operation. They only knew that an extensive construction work was going on deep in the mountain. That was how far Wang Chong went to conceal this matter. But the news still eventually leaked somehow, and the matter was spiraling out of control. In that instant, Wang Chong panicked. No matter what, he didn't believe that Gao Feng, Nye Yan, and the others would betray him. Someone must have intentionally let the news out, Wang Chong thought. He had no doubt about that. Honestly speaking, he was extremely displeased by this matter. Who is the person who spread the news out? Wang Chong thought. He disliked the feeling of being led around the nose by someone else in the dark. Walala. While Xianxia was in contemplation, a letter pigeon suddenly swooped down from the sky. Wang Chong stretched out his hand and grabbed it. There was a simple note tied to the leg of the pigeon, and two familiar, thick brushstrokes were written on it. It is a letter from teacher. Whenever the demonic emperor old man sent a letter to Wang Chong, he would leave two thick brush strokes on the back to indicate his identity. This was the first time Wang Chong had received a letter from him since he came to Kunwu training camp. So that is what happened. After reading the contents of the letter, the frown on Wang Chong's forehead tightened. But the mystery which had confounded him had been resolved. The demonic emperor old man's note was rather short, mentioning only that a suspicious group of men had appeared in the vicinity of the spirit vein recently. Wang Chong's teacher hadn't fully recovered yet, so he wasn't able to view the situation clearly from his location then. However, he could tell that all of them possessed exceptional cultivation, and their armor was clearly that donned by the guards of the royal court. One of them was even holding onto something resembling a geomantic compass. Even though the demonic emperor old man stopped the letter here, this was more than sufficient for Wang Chong. Indeed, someone has intentionally spread the news regarding the spirit vein. It seems like even teacher has heard of the news. Considering how chaotic it was already here, there must have been quite a few people who went to check out the spirit vein in the past few days, Wang Chong thought. The only consolation at the moment was that Wang Chong was at least smart enough to spend the money to buy the mountain, as well as the land surrounding it. Furthermore, the Wang clan's name was also strong enough to deter most powers from doing anything extreme. No one would dare to intentionally cross Duke Jiu. On top of that, the Imperial Army instructors were stationed on the spirit vein as well. Thus, the situation should be still fine for now. As long as Wang Chong refused to sell the spirit vein, no one would be able to do anything to him. Most probably, that bunch of men chose to intentionally expose this news to fluster Wang Chong. Since someone was holding a geomantic compass, that person should be a seer. Only those who engage in divination would use a compass. However, how did that person manage to divine the location of my spirit vein? Wang Chong was perplexed. Since no seer was able to divine the presence of a spirit vein in his previous life, why would it be different now? That presence of the spirit vein had been concealed by an immense congregation of malicious aura, and that should have been able to confound most seers. Otherwise, considering the massive spiritual energy gathered in the area, how could it possibly remain undetected until the day it exploded during the catastrophe? Thus, Wang Chong found it inconceivable that someone actually managed to divine the location of his spirit vein. A divergence in destiny had truly occurred. Wang Chong. Just as Wang Chong was deep in thought, a snappish voice sounded out. A valiant lady with a spear behind her back appeared below. Before her presence, the crowd immediately split apart to open a pathway for her to pass through. A few guards of the deflecting blade manor stepped forward to stop her, but Wang Chong hurriedly halted them with a wave of his hand. You brat, to think that you have such a huge spirit vein outside of the capital. When were you intending to inform me of this matter? Marquis E grabbed Wang Chong's shoulder and exerted her strength. Creak! Wang Chong's bones groaned in protest. Wang Chong had reached Origin Energy Tier 9 Pinnacle, but his cultivation still wasn't a match for Marquis E yet. If Marquis E wishes to cultivate there, I'll welcome you there any time. You can drop by the spirit vein whenever you want to. There won't be any restrictions on you, Wang Chong replied. Despite Marquis Yi's slim build, the immense strength that she exerted with her hand was no joke at all. Wang Chong could tell that she was far stronger than Abutong. Good. I'll forgive you for now then. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Marquis Yi's eyes lit up, and she loosened her grip. Right. Some good friends of mine want to tag along as well. That is of course not a problem too. Feel free to bring them along. Wang Chong immediately replied without any hesitation. In any case, the spirit vein was huge, so a few additional people wouldn't make a difference at all. Furthermore, considering their relationship with second sister Wang Zhiyan, he wouldn't act so miserly with them either. That's more like it. Marquis Yi released Wang Chong's shoulder with a smile reminiscent of a blooming flower on her lips. Having achieved her extortion, she looked around and noticed the deflecting blade manner behind Wang Chong. Your manner doesn't look too bad. Marquis Yi spoke as if she was seeing it for the first time. This manner of mine has been completed for a long time already. How can you have only seen it now? Wang Chong was rendered speechless by Marquis Yi's response. True, the Vermilion Peak might be a little far away from this manor, but to have only seen it now. He had heard from second sister that Marquis Yi was a martial arts fanatic, and that seemed to be very true at the moment. Wang Chong beckoned a guard from the deflecting blade manor over and instructed him. Luo Chang, take Marquis Yi in to take a look. Yes, Gongzi. The guard hurriedly led Marquis Yi up the mountain and into the deflecting blade manor. After Wang Chong finally sent that fearsome woman away, Zhao Jingdian heaved a sigh of relief and asked, Gongzi, what do we do now? A frown reappeared on Wang Chong's forehead as he gazed at the crowd beneath him silently. Have the men gather the names of those who are interested in joining the deflecting blade manor and hand it to me. I intended to take the deflecting blade manor forward a step at a time, but it seems like there is no need for it anymore. This is a good opportunity. Wang Chong spoke resolutely, looking at the bustling crowd beneath him. As the saying went, opportunity and disaster are like two sides of a coin. They come together and are interchangeable. Even though he was caught off guard by this turn of events, it was undeniable that this could be seen as a good opportunity as well. If he could grasp it well, it could be a chance to further his aims. Thus, Wang Chong came to a decision. Under Wang Chong's leadership, the guards began to gather the names of those in the area. The crowd, which was dissatisfied at being obstructed by the guards, immediately cheered Wang Chong's name in excitement. Even those who had intended to do Wang Chong in couldn't have expected the latter's reputation in the training camp to soar over this matter. Walala. Soon after Wang Chong instructed his men to gather the names, a white dove dove down from the sky. Today sure wasn't going to be a peaceful day. Upon seeing Big Uncle Wang Zhen's seal on the letter, Wang Chong was taken aback. After a moment of hesitation, he opened the letter and looked at it. The letter which Big Uncle Wang Zhen sent over only had a few lines of words asking if the spirit vein beyond the capital truly belonged to Wang Chong. However, it was this ordinary letter without any concrete content that made Wang Chong's heart sink. The terms Big Uncle Wang Zhen used were extremely polite, different from his usual casual tone. This was very unlike Big Uncle Wang General. It seemed as if he had sent this letter at the request of another. Given Big Uncle Wang Zhen's current standing in the royal court, there were very few people who could put him in such a difficult position. Wang Chong only had to give it some thought to figure out who the other party was. Wang Chong sighed deeply as he kept the letter with a heavy heart. If Wang Chong's conjecture didn't fail him, the person who left Big Uncle Wang Zhen so distressed was probably the first prince. When Wang Chong first received the letter from his teacher, saying that someone dressed in the armor of the royal guards had appeared in the vicinity of the spirit vein, he already had a bad premonition. And everything happened as he had suspected. The person who brought the seer to the spirit vein and announced the news was probably a prince, and the one who made Big Wang Zhen write the letter was another. The thing which Wang Chong had been worrying about had finally happened. In this life, the matter which Wang Chong didn't wish to get embroiled with the most was the War of the Princes. The vast Crane Pavilion incident, Consort Taishan incident, Regional Commanders incident. All of these matters could easily result in the downfall of a prestigious clan, but none of them could compare with the severity of the War of the Princes. Regardless of which era one was in, the War of the Princes was always the most dangerous matter to get involved with. A single mistake could result in the regret of a lifetime. The ancient Yu the Great intended to pass his throne to Count Yi, but the latter ended up being killed by Yu the Great's son, and his body was torn apart by 5 horses. This was how vicious the War of the Princes could get. Anything that involved the struggle for imperial authority was bound to be callous and vicious in nature. Their failure in the vast Crane Pavilion incident still allowed the Wang clan to hold its ground for many years, and even the Consort Taishan incident only resulted in the demotion of the Wang clan to normal civilians. But as for the War of the Princes, as soon as the new emperor ascended the throne, those who supported the opposing princes would find their entire clans completely exterminated. Even an emperor as wise as Yu the Great had his own successor being torn to shreds by his own son. Needless to say about the others after him. Such had been the case when the incumbent sage emperor came to power, so why should there be any exception this time? Wang Chong had always consciously shied away from the War of the Princes, trying to remain uninvolved as far as it was possible. But this spirit vein had swept Wang Chong into the most dangerous vortex in Great Tang. The first prince stood behind big uncle Wang Zhen, and the mysterious prince who dispatched the seer to find the spirit vein. With these 2 princes getting involved in this matter, there was no doubt that more would soon come knocking on the doors of the Wang clan. And that was where the trouble lay. Amidst this crisis, such a thing known as the correct decision didn't exist at all. There was no ground one could stand on to definitely remain safe. Doing anything was a mistake in itself, and the more one did, the deeper one would sink. But not doing anything was a mistake as well. With such thoughts in mind, Wang Chong could only sigh deeply. All that has to happen will happen. I'll just count my steps as I take them. Soon, Wang Chong turned around and returned back to the deflecting blade manor. What a powerful spirit vein! Just as Wang Chong was busy in the deflecting blade manor, he was unaware that a haughty, crimson-robed lady was currently standing at the edge of the Vermilion Bird Peak. A fiery martial halo reminiscent of blazing flames shone beneath her feet. Along with an austere court nanny beside her, she gazed in the direction of the deflecting blade manor. Behind them were more than a dozen ladies dressed in court wear. Each of them possessed exceptional cultivation, and even the weakest of them was a true martial realm. As such, their presence was exceptionally conspicuous in the training camp. Your Highness, this is a good opportunity. It is by the will of heavens that we are in the Kunwu training camp. We mustn't let this chance slip by our fingers. The austere nanny spoke. From the slight golden hue on her skinny, withered fingers, it could be seen that she had cultivated some kind of unique martial arts. And held in her 5 fingers was a letter containing the most recent news from the capital. Under her instructions, a scout had already proceeded to scope out the spirit vein, and the news he sent back was that the spiritual energy contained in the spirit vein was unbelievably concentrated. And more importantly, the spirit vein covered a wide region. This news was sufficient to move any power in the capital. Without a doubt, anyone who gained possession of this huge spirit vein would obtain a vital edge in the War of the Princes. Since that is the case, let's take it. Princess Ni Huang said without any hesitation, holding her head up high. The brilliant splendor of her halo made her astounding features even more beautiful. We will surely have to gain possession of it. But that lad isn't a simple figure. The old nanny frowned. Even though she had been living in the royal court for far too long, spending most of her time by Princess Ni Huang's side, she was still kept abreast of the happenings outside. The old nanny began to fill Princess Ni Huang in on the various rumors she had gathered regarding that lad. Humph, and here I was wondering what kind of formidable figure he could be. In the end, he's just nothing more than a fellow who is all words. Princess Ni Huang replied in disdain after hearing of the regional commander's incident. No matter how big the Wang clan is, can it be compared to the royal family? I don't believe that he will dare to refuse me if I were to ask him to hand it over. Besides, even if he were to refuse, all we have to do is to beat him into submission. I don't have the hobby of being rejected. Princess Ni Huang clenched her fists, and a powerful aura gushed forth from her. For a moment, the entire cliff tremored. This was the incredible strength that profound martial realm experts harnessed at their fingertips. As a member of the royal family, she had the qualifications to be proud. Before her, not even Abutong was worth anything. Your Highness is right. No matter how powerful the Wang clan is, they are no more than servants of the royal family. I'll escort your Highness over later on. If that lad were to dare to utter a word of refusal, your humble servant will teach him a lesson in your Highness's stead and have him obediently hand the spirit vein over. The old nanny nodded as a bone-chilling smile surfaced on her lips. No matter what the princess wanted, even if it was the stars in the sky, she would obtain it for her. That was her mission as a servant. Gongzi, we have tallied the name list. Unknowingly, several hours had passed, and the crowd outside slowly scattered. Zhao Jingdian stepped into the room with a thick stack of papers in his hands. Place it on the table. The room was decorated in an elegant, antique fashion. Wang Chong was currently seated behind an ancient Han Dynasty painting as he gestured to a rosewood table beside him. The commotion resulting from the spirit vein had brought in more applicants to the deflecting blade manor than expected. Perhaps I should change the rules, Wang Chong thought. His original plan was to gather a group of talented commanders from Kunwu training camp and groom them to achieve greater things in the future. But the arrival of the men from Shenwei and Longwei had made Wang Chong reconsider his decisions. He suddenly felt that he could expand his original plan to include those from Shenwei and Longwei as well. However, the prerequisites to entering the deflecting blade manor wouldn't change. Wang Chong didn't intend to recruit martial artists. There were plenty of experts throughout Great Tang whose services he could employ if that was the case. Who Wang Chong intended to recruit were those who possessed a sharp eye for the battlefield, or those who possessed potential in that aspect. In other words, Wang Chong wanted to bring in allies who would stand on the same front as him, future generals who would fight for Great Tang. Starting from the very first page, Wang Chong began to read through the names while scavenging through the memories of his previous life to sieve out the list of priority candidates. Xie Qingyun from Longwei Training Camp. He sounds familiar. Isn't he the scion of the Xie clan? He is quite famous in the capital, and he is renowned for his loyalty. To think that he would be here as well. Wang Chong thought as he stared at a certain name in the middle of the list. While Shenwei and Longwei failed to produce as many outstanding generals as Kunwu Training Camp, there were still quite a few who had achieved considerable feats. Even though Xie Qingyun couldn't compete with the top-notch talented generals such as Su Hanshan and Sun Jiming, he was still a relatively outstanding commander. According to what Wang Chong remembered, the other party eventually became a commandant, a high-ranked officer in the military. Coming from a large clan, he should have come into contact with military affairs and the sort from a young age, so his talent should be acceptable. The only thing he is lacking is the determination to reach for greater heights. Since he was able to become a commandant in his previous life, he should have some talent in commanding an army. If he could be groomed in the deflecting blade manner, he might be able to surpass his previous achievements and reach heights beyond his previous life, Wang Chong thought. The future held countless possibilities. As long as one reached out, there were many things one could grasp. However, after seeing Xie Qingyun's name, Wang Chong suddenly recalled another recruit of Longwei Training Camp. That person had one of the humbler backgrounds among those in Longwei, and his clan didn't seem to regard him highly, either. However, to uphold the honor of the clan, he was still allowed to enroll in Longwei Training Camp despite being the son of a concubine. Such matters were rather common in large clans. A moment later, Wang Chong's eyes lit up as he found the ordinary-sounding name. I found it, Wei Anfang. The current Wei Anfang was probably going through one of the worst phases in his life. There was no one in the clan who valued him, he was snubbed in Longwei Training Camp, and he even had a conflict with his elder brother recently. Wang Chong raised his brush and wrote a tick beside Wei Anfang's name. Wei Anfang was one of the high achievers that had emerged from the Longwei Training Camp. The army that he led had performed unexpectedly well in several huge battles. He was a dedicated person who could fulfill the instructions of his superior perfectly, and even go beyond that. Every single great general needed to learn the art of effectively commanding an army. But similarly, they would also require loyal commanders who could understand their military tactics and intention, and execute them perfectly. Wei Anfang definitely belonged to the latter. His talent might not be particularly outstanding, paling in face of Sun Jiming, Chan Burang, and the others, but as a loyal and flexible commander, he was a sought-after talent of all great generals who possessed great ambitions. And more importantly, Wei Anfang was the type to only shine later on. His life in Longwei training camp was ordinary and unspectacular, and he only began to rise swiftly after he officially entered the army. With each passing battle, he had undergone metamorphosis after metamorphosis, eventually becoming one of the few rising stars from Longwei training camp. If Wang Chong could bring him to his side now, the other party would surely become his most reliable comrade. Jingdian, send an invitation letter to this person. Tell him that he need not take the examination, and he can come here straight. Pointing to Wei Anfang's name, Wang Chong instructed Zhao Jingdian. Upon hearing Wang Chong's words, a sliver of astonishment flashed across Zhao Jingdian's eyes. He couldn't understand what kind of capabilities Wei Anfang possessed for Wang Chong to extend an invitation straight to him without undergoing the entrance examination. Furthermore, this was under the circumstances that Wang Chong had yet to finish looking through the list. Yes, Gongzi. Even though Zhao Jingdian was bewildered, he still followed Wang Chong's instructions without any complaints. After arranging this matter, Wang Chong continued browsing through the list. Zhang Tuwen. No impression of him at all. Su Tong. This person has a horrible reputation. Back when I was still hanging in the streets, his name surfaced on many occasions. Huang Yanwu. I should give him a chance when the time comes. Shi Rongrong. Seeing the feminine name amidst the list, Wang Chong grabbed his forehead as a pang of headache struck him. There were quite a few female applicants to the deflecting blade manor this time, but Wang Chong's original plan didn't involve the recruitment of ladies. Of course, Marquis E was an exception. Furthermore, they didn't seem to just be interested in entering the deflecting blade manor. The words they had spoken earlier were still fresh in Wang Chong's mind. This is truly troubling, Wang Chong thought. This matter had surpassed Wang Chong's expectations. It would not be feasible for him to reject every single one of them. After all, most of them came from distinguished clans, and if they were to cause a fuss, it would be vexing. But accepting those ladies in, he hadn't really entertained such a possibility before. Besides, Wang Chong had another doubt in his mind. The spirit vein is indeed enticing, but the number of ladies who applied for the deflecting blade manor is simply too many. This is a little suspicious, Wang Chong thought. Calming himself down, Wang Chong continued scanning through the names and leaving a mark on some of them. Some time later, as Wang Chong was still busy marking the names on the list, a lady's voice suddenly sounded. Even though the voice was pleasant, it had a haughty and domineering vibe to it. Where is Wang Chong? Come out right now. Wang Chong raised his head from the desk doubtfully. The voice seemed to be coming from the entrance, and it didn't seem to be Marquis E. Boom! Before Wang Chong could process what was going on, a loud explosion sounded, and the gate to the courtyard was kicked open. A shock wave gushed into the room, following which the sound of wooden boards and human bodies crashing onto the floor sounded. It seemed like the guard had been kicked in along with the door. Damn it! Who are those people? Fury flashed across Wang Chong's eyes as he smashed his palm onto the table. It was one thing to cause trouble in the deflecting blade manor, but to hurt his men was going way too far. Pong! Opening the door, Wang Chong was just about to walk out when what he saw left him frozen. At the entrance, he saw a group of ferocious young ladies dressed in courtwear, and a formidable-looking nanny standing in front of them. And standing in front of those young ladies and beside the old nanny was a fair-skinned young lady. She was beautiful, but her face was frosty like a winter night. Standing above a resplendent pink halo reminiscent of flames, she gazed at the crowd with an air of superiority. The Imperial Army members whom Uncle Li Lin had dispatched here were kneeling before her with their heads lowered. You are Wang Chong? Upon noticing Wang Chong, the cold-faced lady immediately turned her head over. Her attitude was overbearing and intolerable. Seeing the young lady, Wang Chong was taken aback. He didn't recognize the lady, but he recognized the brilliant martial halo beneath her feet. He had only seen it from afar on the night of the Gogurian's night assault, but Princess Anai Huang. This thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and in an instant, a bad premonition struck him. I am talking to you. Not receiving an answer, Princess Anai Huang immediately became a little irritated. Yes, I am. May I know the reason behind your Highness's visit? Wang Chong said as he walked down the stairs. Humph. It's good that you're him. Ignoring the guards of the deflecting blade manor, Princess Anai Huang walked up to Wang Chong. The cold-faced nanny and the group of ladies behind her immediately followed suit. I am honored by your Highness's visit. May I know what can I do for you? Wang Chong said nonchalantly as he gestured to a guard beside him. Bring a pot of tea over. There's no need for it. Before Wang Chong could finish his words, Princess Anai Huang interjected. Humph, since you know who I am, that will make things simpler. I heard that you have a spirit vein under your name. Hand it over. Her voice was forceful, leaving no grounds for negotiation at all. Pong! With just a glance, the court lady behind immediately stepped forward and placed a blank deed on the rosewood table to the side. Even the red ink used to seal the deed had been prepared. That bad premonition had become a reality. Looking at the deed and the red ink before him, Wang Chong's complexion turned ugly. Princess Anai Huang was indeed here for the spirit vein. He knew that the exposure of the spirit vein would surely bring about great trouble, but he didn't think that it would come that quickly. A princess had actually come before him for the spirit vein. Even though Wang Chong knew that he was bound for trouble, he didn't expect the other party to be so arrogant. To expect him to hand over the spirit vein freely like that, how could there be something as good as that in the world? If it was just for private purposes, he wouldn't mind giving the spirit vein away. However, the spirit vein simply played too crucial a role for him in changing the future. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wasted his resources on it in the first place. Not to mention, he wouldn't have continued holding on to it despite the danger of being embroiled in the War of the Princes. Especially after receiving the letter from Big Uncle Wang General, but from the looks of it, Princess Anai Huang would never leave unless she achieved her aims here. Most probably, the matter here wouldn't be resolved peacefully. Glancing at the brilliant martial halo beneath Princess Anai Huang's feet, he asked calmly, May I ask your Highness a question? Given your Highness's superior cultivation, what use do you have seeking the spirit vein? Humph, you need not bother about that. I'll just ask you one simple question. Will you hand it over or not? Princess Anai Huang's eyebrows shot up as she spoke authoritatively. Lad, I know that you are the grandson of Duke Jiu, but since your Highness has already requested it from you, you better obediently hand it over. The austere old nanny who possessed unfathomable cultivation added. Indeed, why bother speaking so much nonsense? Since your Highness asks you to hand it over, all you have to do is to hand it over. I suggest you give in so that you can avoid some unnecessary suffering. The two court ladies behind Princess Anai Huang harumphed impolitely with an attitude of, It is your honor that our princess is interested in your possession. Ha ha ha. Princess Anai Huang, even His Majesty has to spend his own money to purchase his meal and necessities. Yet, your Highness actually expects me to give away a spirit vein for free. What if I reject your request? Wang Chong sneered in anger. Humph. That is not up to you. Having expected Wang Chong's rejection of her request, Princess Anai Huang smiled coldly. So, with a flash, her figure vanished, and a slim but powerful white hand darted straight for Wang Chong's wrist. Wang Chong knew that Princess Anai Huang would surely make a move, so he swiftly executed the phantom steps. In an instant, 3 identical Wang Chongs appeared before Princess Anai Huang. Princess Anai Huang had always been an arrogant person, and she didn't think highly of Wang Chong either. Thus, she was caught off guard by Wang Chong's maneuver, and her hand grabbed onto thin air. Princess Anai Huang was taken aback, but she swiftly recovered from her astonishment. Instead of pursuing Wang Chong, she turned around to look at the old nanny beside her with a cold smile. Nanny, I was right, am I? This fellow won't pass the spirit vein over to us willingly unless we show him our might. Your Highness, don't worry. Leave this lad to me. A layer of frost cloaked the old nanny's face. The second prince was too scheming, deceiving even his own blood-related sister. This made Wang Chong extremely unfond of him. This might be a means for survival in the fight for the crown, but Wang Chong didn't think it justified the action of deceiving even one's close kin. It is impossible that he is unaware that Princess Anai Huang and I are in the same training camp. Perhaps it might even be his intention for Princess Anai Huang to come to new training camp. After the exposure of the existence of the spirit vein, the second prince might have even predicted that Princess Anai Huang would resort to such extreme actions, so he chose not make a move at all. Such thoughts swiftly ran across Wang Chong's mind. As he recalled the reputation of the second prince and the deeds he had committed in the previous life, Wang Chong suddenly felt uncomfortable. When power came into the equation, even the most innocent of princes would turn into ferocious beasts. This was also the reason why Wang Chong was reluctant to get involved in the matter. Princess Anai Huang, do you think that you will be of aid to the second prince just because you obtained the spirit vein? Wang Chong harumphed coldly. Instead of retreating, he chose to walk up toward Princess Anai Huang fearlessly. Regardless of whether Princess Anai Huang was aware of the true character of the second prince, Wang Chong knew that he had to cross this crisis first. Brat, what kind of tricks are you playing? As a worldly veteran, the old nanny immediately detected that Wang Chong was up to something upon seeing his actions. But this time she had guessed wrong. Ha ha ha! Ignoring the old nanny, Wang Chong chuckled. Princess Anai Huang, are you unaware that General Li Yichao has been defeated at the Black Mountain? And yet, you are still in the mood to fight with me over a spirit vein. Wang. Princess Anai Huang was determined to remain calm before whatever Wang Chong was going to say, but upon hearing General Li Yichao's name, Princess Anai Huang and the old nanny's faces immediately changed. You brat! How dare you try to fool me? Princess Anai Huang's face turned cold. So, her figure blurred, and before Wang Chong could discern what was going on, he felt something grab his arm tightly. This time, Princess Anai Huang had gotten serious. Her movement was several times faster than before, leaving no time for Wang Chong to respond at all. At this moment, Wang Chong finally understood why Princess Anai Huang was willing to deal with him so leisurely. Wang Chong, stop spouting nonsense. How could General Li lose? If you continue uttering gibberish, I won't stop at just taking away a spirit vein from you. The infuriated Princess Anai Huang bellowed. A deep frosty frown was etched onto her forehead. She had arrived at the deflecting blade manor with a leisurely attitude, but Wang Chong's words had truly left her incensed. This is just a little lesson to you. Kachacha. Princess Anai Huang tightened her grip, and that clamp-like strength left Wang Chong feeling as if his wrist was torn into two. Even so, Wang Chong didn't even utter the slightest shout of pain. He had undergone far too much for him to be affected by such measly means by Princess Anai Huang. Princess Anai Huang, I am only stating a fact. Whether you wish to believe it or not is none of my business. Our Wang clan has some connections in the military, so it is inevitable that our intelligence network in the field is slightly faster than others. If you think that I am uttering gibberish, you can always treat it as if I have said nothing at all. Wang Chong replied coldly. However, the more Wang Chong acted in such a manner, the more unnerved Princess Anai Huang felt. Even the composed old nanny couldn't help but feel a little jittery inside. Black Halberd General Li Yichao was a subordinate of the second prince, and the both of them had a tight relationship. If Li Yichao were to suffer a loss in the northern region and lose a city, he would surely be severely punished by the Sage Emperor. The Great Tang Empire had severe penalties for generals who lost the territory of the nation. And more important than that, the second prince would also be implicated in the matter. In the struggle for imperial power, this could prove to be fatal. This was truly a huge quake for the second prince. Before that, the spirit vein did seem unimportant in comparison. On this aspect, Wang Chong wasn't wrong at all. Your Highness, let's put the matter of the spirit vein aside for the moment. If what this lad says is true, then this matter is of grave importance. the old nanny said with a grim expression. Hearing those words, Princess Ni Huang began to panic. Brat, if I learn that you are lying. However, before Princess Ni Huang could finish her piece, Wang Chong had already interjected. Princess Ni Huang, if I were you, I would rush back to the royal palace as fast as I could. Perhaps you might still make it in time to salvage the situation. Otherwise, do you think that grabbing a spirit vein will be able to pull the second prince out of that dire situation? Wang Chong sneered. This wasn't a lie. Li Yichao's army had indeed been defeated at the Black Mountain, and news would reach the capital very soon. But of course, there was one thing that Wang Chong didn't tell Princess Ni Huang. The Turks didn't have the habit of conquering cities. On top of that, considering the immense military might of the Biting Protectorate Manor, even if they were to breach the defenses of the Black Mountain, they would surely retreat swiftly. Li Yichao and the others need not face the Turks straight on. They could easily snatch the Black Mountain back after the Turks retreated. But of course, Wang Chong would never tell this to Princess Ni Huang. It would be good to make this domineering and haughty princess panic for a bit. With Wang Chong's words, Princess Ni Huang immediately rushed out of the manor anxiously. Nanny, let's leave. Brat, if I learn that you are lying to me, be prepared to face the consequences. Princess Ni Huang beckoned for the old nanny as she walked out. Pong, with a flick of her finger, a powerful force shot out and struck a massive tree 20 zhang away from the walls of the deflecting blade manor. The towering tree immediately fell, and the massive crown came crashing onto the deflecting blade manor. That woman's cultivation sure is incredible. Upon seeing that sight, Wang Chong couldn't help but be astonished. Princess Ni Huang hadn't used any technique at all. It was just an ordinary finger flick. Yet, as normal as it was, it still felled a towering tree 20 zhang away. Her strength was indeed fearsome. Princess Ni Huang's group left as quickly as they came. As furiously as they marched in, they ended up leaving anxiously. In just a brief moment, they had disappeared in the horizon. Gongzi! Zhao Jingdian climbed to his feet and shook his limbs. He was still a little unnerved by the incident a moment ago. The old nanny had grabbed his acupoint, rendering him incapable of moving. Zhao Jingdian had considered whether he should persuade Wang Chong to hand over the spirit vein or not, but it seemed like there was no need for that anymore. Princess Ni Huang had marched into the deflecting blade manor with a group of powerful martial artists. Zhao Jingdian thought that Wang Chong would end up giving away the spirit vein, but who knew that the latter would actually succeed in convincing them to leave with just a few words. Jingdian, are you fine? Wang Chong walked up and asked worriedly. The torture methods in the royal court were no joke. They were both vicious and cruel, and those beyond the palace could hardly imagine how brutal the torture could get. From the outside, Wang Chong couldn't tell for sure whether Zhao Jingdian was injured or not. I'm fine. Zhao Jingdian shook his head. It was fortunate that Wang Chong had dealt with them timely, leaving them no chance to inflict more injuries on him other than the first needle. Gongzi! Zhao Jingdian hesitated. I know that you have done everything just now to save me, but if they return and realize that you were lying, we might be in trouble then. Perhaps a cup of poisonous wine might be able to alleviate one's thirst for a moment, but it would only push one a step further into the abyss. When Princess Ni Huang realized the truth, the trouble would return at an escalated level. Given Princess Ni Huang's standing and prowess, she would surely stir up a storm in the deflecting blade manor, leaving no peace for anyone. Hearing those words, Wang Chong couldn't help but chuckle. Ha 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 ha. Jingdian, do you think I lied to them? Is that not so? Zhao Jingdian was taken aback. Of course not. The smiling Wang Chong shook his head. Seeing Zhao Jingdian's stunned expression, he didn't bother to explain the situation. All right, you should go and take a rest. I will settle this matter. After settling Zhao Jingdian, Wang Chong went out of deflecting blade manor. However, as soon as he stepped out of its gates, he saw a familiar figure rushing up the mountain. Seems like my worry is unfounded. I have made a wasted trip. Carrying the trademark spear of hers behind her back, Marquis E stepped over the gates and gazed at the interior of the courtyard. After which, she glanced at Wang Chong doubtfully. Noticing the doubt in her eyes, Wang Chong asked. You saw Princess and I Huang? Marquis E nodded. She had rushed here as soon as she received the news. She had some ties with Princess and I Huang, so she came with the intention of playing mediator to help Wang Chong. She didn't expect to see Princess and I Huang rushing off anxiously while she was in the midst of scaling the mountain. What in the world did you say to her? I know Princess and I Huang. She isn't the type to give up that easily. Marquis E assessed Wang Chong from head to toe suspiciously. Given Princess and I Huang's panicked state a moment ago, it didn't seem likely that she had obtained the spirit vein. However, if that was the case, it didn't make sense for her to leave when she hadn't achieved her objectives here. Marquis E was unable to comprehend the bizarre paradox before her. For the first time, she realized that she was unable to see through Wang Chong. Hee. Wang Chong chuckled in response. I'll explain it to you in the future. For the time being, do me a favor. I have quite a thick name list in my room, and there are quite a few ladies in there. However, I am not familiar with them, so I require your help on this. Marquis E had come at a timely moment. After giving it some thought, Wang Chong felt that if he wanted to expand the influence of the deflecting blade manor, he mustn't limit his scope. Furthermore, if he were to cut them off entirely, it would result in some troubles. On the contrary, accepting a number of them could prove to be highly beneficial. Poochie. But unexpectedly, upon hearing Wang Chong's words, Marquis E abruptly burst into laughter. Following which, she examined Wang Chong once more, and her laughter intensified. Her gaze carried a mysterious intention that left Wang Chong feeling a little uncomfortable.